Right now we're on tour. We're starting out with 6 cities. We're taking the movie on tour ourselves. We're promoting a VOD release October 1st of the film. Our goal is to just take it to wherever people want to see it. And right now we've got a couple theaters that we've got booked in Philadelphia, Rutgers, Elmira, and Vegas. And after that, we're going to keep adding theaters and screens, or we're going to blow up the screen and then start showing up and having parties and showing it on the side of barns if need be.
I want to do a quick roundtable of who we actually have here with us tonight. Let's start over on the end here.
Kris Hulbert, writer, co-director, and producer.
Kent, producer and co-director.
Next, oh, I'm sorry.
Jonathan Tiersten, actor and writer of the theme song in the air that made it over the credits.
William Robertson, actor and anything that needed done behind the camera.
And I'm Andrea Vahl, obviously one of the actresses and a producer of the film.
So I'm going to actually open up there. Anybody first? Does anybody have any questions for the cast and crew? Go ahead.
Were you guys at all inspired by Amityville Horror? With the theme, the house, you and all that?
No, not really. I think consciously I tried to keep it away from the supernatural side as much as possible because it's been there, done that so much. So not really. We try to stay away from the supernatural.
Did you guys shoot on, I didn't see the credits, did you guys shoot on film or digital?
Digital. We shot it on an HVX20. We had a Red Rock lens adapter, and we used 35mm lenses. And our DP was brilliant. He was able to get the most amazing shots.
Tall as are.
Yeah, he was pretty brilliant. He was a little difficult to work with, but he was brilliant. He was malicious about that shot list. If you go over to the room over there and see some of the props, by the way.
Yeah.
That we're using this film, you'll see he has his meticulous shot list. Every single shot in the movie.
Kris is cringing as we
I know.
speak.
It caused a lot of problems on the set, to be honest, because like he's not used to working with the flow. You know, as things change, things happen. But yeah, it worked out.
Did you do a lot of multiple takes?
Oh yeah.
Oh my
Me
God.
Especially this guy. Remember his lines. But yeah, it was.
What lines?
Oh, you made it up.
Didn't I have the weed whacker?
That's a bar.
Hey,
yeah,
I did not have a single cocktail that entire week, people.
JT was probably one of the worst positions an actor could be in. The character he was doing was originally inspired off of the way I talk and my dialogue and things like that. So I was very hard on him on making sure things were the exact.
And we wrestled.
Yes.
Yeah. Every single.
We wrestled on every word. I mean, it was like, and I mean, if you watch this, it was great. Cause this, I don't know if you guys know, this is the first time I've seen it. And we wrestled over every single word of dialogue, and we would fight on set. You know,
Was he right? Was he right?
We were both right sometimes. And it was funny because Randy would be sitting there pulling his hair out.
Yeah.
Because Kris and I are going, okay.
Fight over one word.
Yeah, one word. Like, you know, egotistically correct moral motives.
I had nailed it right away.
50 takes later.
That was easy.
Yeah, it was only 50 takes later. But, you know, we had 15-hour days. You know, they say we shot it in 14 days, but they probably put 28 takes in 14 days. I mean, that's what you do with an indie film, and you put the actors through fucking hell, and, excuse my French. But, you know, it really was. It was a long, arduous 4 days. I felt like I lived a lifetime in those 4 days, and I couldn't believe you had to do it again after I left. I just said, oh man, I'm going home.
Well, the day after we left was basically our worst day on set.
I remember there was
the day
a
off. Yeah, the day off or whatever, and then.
Yeah, you guys had your meltdown.
The bathroom day was
And a little actor problem.
horrendous. Yeah,
That was exciting too.
worst day of my career.
Yeah, if you look at the floor plans over there, we shot that whole bathroom sequence you see with the girl drowning in the tub, the stabbing, all those things, was shot in a 4.5 by 5 foot bathroom. And it wasn't a soundstage. There was no removable walls or anything. So it was the second floor of my grandpa's house in the middle of July or June summer heat in the East Coast.
Buffalo.
So the
No
second
air
floor, we had to have the windows closed because of sound and everything, so we had about 25, 30 people up on the second floor, hot as hell.
It was miserable.
You were just, you were talking about the script there, so was it fairly tightly scripted? Or did you leave room open for improv as you went through? Or?
No, everything was meticulously scripted and planned. I'm a little more freewheeler than most of these guys, because once we get on set and see stuff, my mind just starts running on all of the other things we can add and do to it. And the cuts were a little tight on that.
You told me to go. That's what you said. Go with it.
Yeah, you gotta go with it sometimes.
There's a lot of cool outtakes with John.
I want to see some.
Yeah, I will show you. Oh, you will. There's one moment where, like, you were doing a torture scene and you were breathing so heavy. I literally almost stopped the tape because I thought you were having a heart attack.
I thought I was too.
Yeah, I really thought you were having a heart attack because you were just so breathing so heavy and so into it.
There was do you remember when I fell over on the cage after the torture scene because I was
Was
completely
that
gassed.
before or after you dropped the cage door on Hans?
That's what I was going to ask you about. See, that was the only time Kris really yelled at me. I slammed the cage right on my victim's arm, and I thought it was broken. I really did.
Yeah, it was hurting for a while.
The guy that got his eyelids got cut off, we put that poor guy through hell.
I slammed the cage right on
The
him.
prosthetics that were over his eyes, you could only see out of a pinhole. So 4 days on set, he had this prosthetic on from 6 in the morning till 11:30 at night, and couldn't see out of anything other than a pinhole. We got some great behind the scenes shots of him trying to check text messages on his cell phone with these eyes cut off.
It's one great when he's outside reading the newspaper with the.
Well, when he had a handler, it was great. He had somebody walking him
Oh,
around.
he used to bounce off all the sunlights in the basement because he couldn't see.
When you talked about the day that was the hardest to film, was there a day that was like your favorite day of filming?
No.
Or like, I guess this is primarily.
Don't even
No, I
touch
guess this is
No fun of any
primarily
kind.
directed at Kris. Like if you because you wrote it, like was there a day that like you saw your words come to life and you're like, oh, damn.
Not to kiss his ass too much over here, but the best day for me on
Talking to
set.
Randy?
Me or Jonathan?
The best day on set for me was the day I walked on set for the first time when JT was standing there in the area of the cages, Holly was in her cage, and Hans was in his cage. And I just had goosebumps. The whole set looked amazing. The three of them just went well together, and it was just instantly I knew that like that story was going to be the heart and soul of the movie. I kept telling everybody, I said, I'm like, even if everything else falls apart, we're going to have 1/6 short with JT.
Yeah.
So that was probably my favorite day was walking out and seeing
I
that.
walked up before we did a single shot. I walked up to the cage and I stared at Holly.
Yeah.
Just stared at her. She stared back, and I knew that we were connecting as actors, and this was not hi, how are you?
Cool. Yeah.
And that was when I knew
Just a set
because she
design
was challenging me.
The set design alone for that story with the backdrop with this.
And the things Tall did,
Amazing. Yeah, amazing. That story really.
hiding
We
in the
shot it
cage.
kind of in sequence. We shot the real estate story first, then the storm story, then the second story, then the third story. So I think during the second story, even though the fight, I think it's where we really realized we had something pretty special with this movie. And then the bathroom scene happened, and we were like, oh.
In retrospect, I wish we would have shot the storm story last.
Yeah.
Having a new crew, everyone was working together for the first time in that, and having everybody the first 2-3 days of shooting was all in the basement in the pitch black dark with a strobe light in everybody's face. And that's how we bonded and learned how to work together.
Yeah, that strobe light made me sick too. I watching the monitor for 2-3 days with that strobe light.
Remember when the
Really
monitor
making me
kicked the
ill.
bucket during our shoot?
Which monitor?
And the remote monitor, remember it kicked the bucket on the third day, and you guys were like flipping out. You're like, so now I can't watch what we're doing.
Yeah, I think we got that fixed eventually. Didn't name anything that kicked the bucket during that shoot.
No, I mean, it's inevitable, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 35 people in a basement,
Yeah.
which,
Hot, sticky.
yeah, things look big on film, they always do. It's like when you look at a house, I don't know if any of you have ever shopped for a house, but you look at a house, you see the pictures, and it looks great, and then you show up and it's just a house. And the basement looked big, and 35 people in that basement. In Buffalo in June.
It was muggy.
Oh my God.
We had a lot of trouble with the prosthetics on Hans, the guy that had the things on his eyes, because he'd start sweating in the heat. They'd almost start sliding down his face a little bit.
Oh, but do you remember when they put what was it that they put in his eyes to make him cry? And they said we really shouldn't do that. No, it wasn't Visine. It was like it was something really toxic. And they go, we really shouldn't drop it right in
It
your
was
eye.
the nose menthol,
Yeah.
on your nose and stuff, and you get the little inhaler thing, and you just kind of smell.
And he goes,
Yeah,
I told
he
you,
says,
put him through hell.
into my eye
and I'm like, what? Why did you tell him to do that? I'm like, are you insane?
You learn from you, Jonathan. You learn from you, buddy.
Yeah.
and stuff. All the fun
That
things
got
you
him to
don't
get
think is
intense.
cool.
Yeah.
I
You had to.
love
literally,
Hans.
Hans literally had to step up his game to compete with you. I mean, he told me that.
I was talking to her earlier, and she said you wrote the script mostly about your dad's or grandpa's house.
The script was, the house that I had set in mind was my grandpa's house, because that basement I was always terrified of as a kid. The storm doors were always just creepy. But we were in LA, and finding a basement in LA was a huge challenge, let alone finding one with a storm door. So we found one that was close, it was similar. They wanted like 15 grand for the 10-day shoot. Yeah, it was like 1,500 a day. And it just became cheaper to pay a couple grand, fly everybody back to Buffalo, and shoot it in the house I wrote the story for, and everything would fit much better, and it completely worked
That's way
out.
cheaper food.
Yeah, oh,
It was great.
Better food.
The
Better
food was
food.
amazing.
Oh, we had friends and family to help out. Everybody kind of pitched
I
in.
had
Yeah,
chicken
the hotel
wings
came
every
out.
day. In fact, Chris snuck me into his trailer.
Oh, that's
Everybody else was eating something else, and he goes,
Pasta
I got,
every
he's like,
day.
I got the wings.
You got when you're in Buffalo, you have to have the Buffalo.
And I'm like, I want the wings every day. That's what I. So for our next shoot, that's all I want.
Buffalo wing.
I just want the wings every day.
Like everyone just kind of came out and helped out on the film, and everyone was behind it. It was fantastic. You don't get that in LA because everyone's kind of out for their own themselves and money, and you know, it's just like
A lot of people that didn't have an opportunity or experience going in, but they had a lot of passion, knowledge, and desire to just be a part of something special. And from beginning to end, that's really all we've looked for is adding people on that just wanted to be a part of something with us. And we really didn't know as much as we'd like to going in, and didn't have experience either. So we just found people that were like-minded like us. And
Is this your first feature-length film?
this is my first feature with people's money.
Yeah.
I've done some small things in that to learn and step up, but
this is my fourth feature. Probably the biggest one I've done, definitely by far. But yeah, it's my fourth feature.
Who came up with the name, The Perfect House?
I don't even remember.
I fought hard for it. Remember, Tina didn't want anything to do with it.
We fought for names for a long time. We came up with a whole list of names, and I don't remember liking that name at first.
Nobody did. That's why I've been fight for it for so long. It's not a horror movie. You can't
What
tell
was
us that's
another
what's cool about it.
name?
Basement, I think it was for a while.
The cellar door.
Cellar door,
Pretty much any kind of tacky three-word
Yeah, it's just
kind
like
of
that,
thing.
yeah.
It's just basic, and
Yeah.
Perfect House kind of worked out in the end when we figured out that
Weed whacker.
there's so many there's so many like
That's
subtext
my vote.
to the title that it's so simple, but yet there's a lot you can look into it.
Now, one of the cool things that I saw that you guys have is this confessional out in the room, around the corner on the way out. What's the deal?
We want people to come in and talk about whether they loved or hated the film. We're gonna put you on camera.
One of the things with the tour is we're trying to make it the most interactive tour ever. That's kind of our catch thing. And we're trying to use any form of technology we can to make it more fun and interesting to follow along with not just the film, but like us and what we're doing to promote it and build a fan base and bring more movies besides just this film. The part of that is the confessional booth. We got a little, like the reality show thing set up over on the side. You just stand in front of the camera real quick, say, I love the movie, I didn't like it, or I thought this. Anything you guys think about the movie or in general, feel free to throw it out there. We're using that on the Facebook page and the movie page, and we're constantly updating with behind-the-scenes stuff, the confessional stuff, and contests, giveaways, anything we can do.
Me learning how to play in the air.
That's up on the website now. And
But I do want to do a shout out to Flying Dog Brewery, because that was one of the funniest things ever. Was when the first morning after you and I and Andrea, you guys picked me up at the airport, and we go. She says, "Well, I have to pick up beer for John Dozy because he drinks beer." And so we just got to pick up something generic that we can,
fuzz out if we have
buzz
to. 'Cause
out
you
and
have to
take
have
the
permission
labels off
first,
of. And I
usually.
said, no, John Dozy doesn't drink bad beer. Never. So we go to Wegmans, is that what it was called?
Yes.
And I said, yeah, and I said, I'm looking around for something that, you know, had a Colorado reference. And I said, but it was Flying Dog. So I said to these guys, well, I was really involved in the beer world, so this will be fine. And they're like, are you sure? And I said, oh yeah. And it took about 4 weeks after the shoot.
Yes, it did. We
I
finally got
sent
the
them a
agreement
huge
saying we
letter.
could use their
Yeah. And
logo.
they said, to quote them, they said, Flying Dog, serial killer. Perfect.
So I got a question for you, JT. That was the first time seeing it. What did you think of your performance and overall compared to your expectations?
Well, I gotta say, I wasn't really paying attention to my performance as much as I was paying attention to everything else. I would say that the movie, I think that what got me more than anything, it's not a gore fest. It's a psychological terror. And to me, those are the best horror movies. This movie is not about the gore. It's not even close to that. And you know, there's some I was really upset with the thumping in the background. But this is a movie where there's a lot of quiet moments. I like movies where there's those quiet times because they that's when you really get scared. You know, it's like when everything seems okie dokie and normal, that's when, you know, you're like, oh God, what's happening? You know, and that's what this movie is like. And I gotta say, Kris, Randy, you know, I'm staggered. I really am. My performance, I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. I gotta be honest though, I really wasn't paying attention. The one that, you know, because I remember saying the lines and I'm like, I'm an asshole. You know? But I gotta, you know, to me it was the flow of the movie that was so intense. It was like, because I love that when it's like you never know where you're going. You know, it's up, it's down, it's up, it's down, and the score.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh God! I mean, just I'm incredibly honored to be, you know, associated with these guys because they did something really staggeringly. I mean, this was such an enormous project.
Didn't start that way.
No, it didn't.
No, it was probably like just the idea was like a little germ, you know, and then you're like, oh, okay.
We wanted to shoot it for $5,000 until we met your dear friend Felissa.
Yeah, it snowballed.
Yeah.
I was shooting another movie in August. 2 months later, Kris calls me up and says, what do you think about writing a song? I'm like, when? And he says, now. And I said, I'm in New York. I live in Colorado. I'm like, what? And so I called up my cousin Peter Cooper Schmidt, who happens to be the nephew of Al Cooper, from Blood, Sweat, and Tears, produced Bob Dylan's Blood on the Tracks, produced Leonard Skinner's first 3 albums. Anyway, my cousin Peter is a brilliant musician. So I called up my cousin Peter and I said, we need to write a song for a film. And he said, when? I said, now. Because that's how Kris talks. And so I figured I'd just use it. And we did. And we did it in what, a week and a half.
Hey, you guys had a
We never saw each other.
pretty quick, yeah.
That's great.
I got a studio as I was shooting this other film in upstate New York, and I recorded the vocals there. Peter did all of the music, and that's the last song you hear on the credits, In the Air, which we played last night at the kickoff party. But that was it.
Also the best song in your album, so you can thank me for being in it.
Thank you so much. No, it's true. I mean, you know, and that was I've never had to like do something like that under the gun, and Peter and I were actually like bouncing lyrics back and forth for like 4 days, like until we like kind of honed it because he really wanted to know what the movie was about, and I think the lyrics work. I really do. So there you have it, In the Air. Please, guys, do the confessional.
Do the confession.
Yeah,
Go on Facebook.
if you liked it or didn't like it, tell
Yeah,
us
do
either
whatever.
way. Just be honest. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that didn't like it too. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like everyone likes it. But if you don't, like, tell us what you didn't like, what you did like, things like that. It's all helpful. It's
Yeah,
all
what
useful.
didn't, what worked, what didn't work.
Yeah. ideas, suggestions, it all helps and helps to build on it and make things
Well, and
better.
I mean,
and
I'm gonna be straight up for my views of the film. I mean, it's obvious that, and when you say that the storm should have been shot last, because I love the storm, and I love the way it looks, but I think the storm, you know, there's issues in the piece a little bit.
Oh, there was supposed to be more to it, but
Well, I mean, you got a lot in there.
Yeah.
My God, there's backstory, everything. That's the
Yeah,
thing
shot
that's
that-
incredible about this film is that in each, you know, the only one that doesn't have backstory
It's yours.
is mine.
that's because you're gonna have a whole spin-off backstory.
Yet. Now he's telling you. Now he's giving away the
The
ghost.
storm story we shot in 3 days. I mean, yeah.
You
we
wanna tell him
did
about that?
What we wanted.
To appease Mr. Tiersten's ego, I wrote a John
As
Dosey.
opposed to the fact that it's his autobiographical character.
I wrote a John Dosey origin story that starts with a mother trying to flush him down the toilet when she conceives him in an airport bathroom.
Right here, Scooter's Cruise first up.
So who is currently living in the perfect home right now? The perfect house, I should have.
In real life, my grandpa.
Oh, he's still living
Yeah,
there?
oh yeah, he's still there. He's still
Has he ever
there.
been in the basement?
Not in about 8 years. Thank God, after when we did do it.
I hear ya.
But Chris Raab is currently living in it in the fictional world.
Oh, is that the jackass dude?
No.
Yeah, the guy at the very end.
I have to say,
Like it's not.
loved it much more without Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
You didn't like the Thriller flash mob you had to listen to it through the wall at
I
Starfest?
didn't get to hear the awesome sound effects in the soundtrack.
Looks better with a good projector too, right?
Yeah, this place is amazing, guys.
This place is amazing. Yeah, let's give it up for the Cinema Grill. Thanks for having us.
Okay.
There we go.
Now we're talking.
There we go.
Hey Chris, what are some of your personal influences, be it either directors or writers, you know, whether it be films or even books that you've read that kind of got you to that?
Kevin Smith and Quentin Tarantino and probably Jay-Z and Eminem. Probably all a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Just the don't quit mentality until you get it and do whatever it takes to make it.
Toby Hopper, Dario Argento, Stanley Kubrick's one of my favorite directors.
So this is my second time seeing this movie, and one thing I noticed is there's a lot of stuff you pick up in the second time watching you didn't catch the first time.
Good.
I haven't seen that since I watched Trick or Treat a few years ago.
Trick or Treat's awesome. That's a great one.
You talking about the original Trick or Treat or the new one?
The most recent one.
Yeah.
Oh, the 80s one is awesome.
The
The one with
original
Ozzy
was
is-
best.
Yeah, the one with Ozzy, that was awesome.
I'm a new one fan.
Yeah, it was a good movie too. But I mean, did you guys plan it that way? Did you think about that in the writer's process? Let's put some things in there
There's
that
a-
maybe people will catch the second time around.
Yeah, there was supposed to be a lot more than we were able to pull off with the quick shoot. But there's a lot of things from each story that stay with the house, and for the future sequels that actually become instigators of memories and things that happen. So like the makeup bag, the TV, there's
There's a lot of little things that you'll probably, on your third screening, you'll probably notice even more.
Picking up stuff left and right tonight, I can only
Yeah,
imagine.
just a lot of little subtle things that we put in that probably didn't even get on screen, like the shovel.
there's
I mean, just all these little things we kept planting throughout that probably didn't even make it on the screen, but we wanted it to be there. So.
Randy,
Yes.
closer to the microphone.
Yeah, but it made it
I'm sorry.
fun and scary.
Thank you.
good. I'm glad you guys liked it. JT, thanks for joining us.
Jonathan Tiersten, John Dosey's on stage. Somebody's got to have a question for that wild man.
That was Chris's running gag throughout the shoot.
He's not that short, Chris.
All right. Let's stop insulting our star.
Does anybody have a question for JT? Right here, we got one.
For JD,
Sure.
how many people have you killed and how long has she been in the basement?
Well, you know, she's been down there for 5 years, and we met in a
1 week.
bar, I think. Pretty sure I was.
That's how it's gonna end up happening.
Yeah, pretty sure I was. I'm an artist and a performer, and that's how we met. So,
What's 1 week for 5 years?
Well,
you know,
5 years times 52 weeks, because it's every Tuesday, right?
every Tuesday. That's a lot of victims.
It's a lot of testosterone.
And apparently I'm a stickler for detail.
Right here?
I'm sitting next to the beautiful Emily.
Oh, yes.
And I don't know if she wants to be in the same house with you anymore.
Wife.
Yeah, my wife came to the screening tonight. I wasn't sure that was a good idea.
So what does Mrs. Tiersten think?
I thought it was great. When he told me he was going to do this role, I thought, wow, you're kind of a method actor guy. How are you going to do this serial killer thing? So I just thought it was a kid, and I believe it.
Didn't think he was capable of
Yeah,
such
is
stuff.
someone sleeping on the couch tonight?
I'll be lucky if I get inside the house.
And he has kids.
Anybody have any more questions for Mr. Tiersten?
For both sides, having two co-directors, what was it like for you directors to be working with somebody else on the visionary aspect of directing? And what was it like for the actor to have two voices directing?
I'll let you guys go first.
Well, Kris and I, we never really spoke about it. It just kind of happened because he wrote the script. He basically did all the actors, the dialogue, all of that stuff. And because I've done films before and I kind of know the technical side of it, I worked closer with the DP and doing the visual aspect of it. And there was a lot of cross patterns, but mostly when it came to the actors, directing the actors, the dialogue, that was mostly Kris. Is that pretty accurate? Yeah.
For me personally, it was a great experience having Randy around because I've never done anything on this scale before and that. And together we covered everything, and there was so much. There was so much going on with the 14-hour shoot and the rapid pace that we had to do it that it almost felt like the two of us weren't enough at times and being pulled in different directions. So I wouldn't have asked for it to be done any other way, and the sequels and anything that comes from it is going to be done the exact same way. It was a great experience for me working with Randy and everybody else.
It sucked.
JT, would this beer change your mind? Would this beer change your mind?
Yes, it doesn't suck quite as much.
Take it right up to him. Take it right up to
No,
him.
truth be known, I mean, it was an amazing experience but it was funny because Randy was the one, with the experience and Kris was the one with the vision. And I was the one in the middle. And so Kris was like, hey man, do whatever you want. And Randy's like, oh my God, please don't let him do whatever he wants.
That was pretty much every day, right?
And that was pretty much every day. And Randy would be like, you can't move so much.
Well, that was our DP too. You gotta,
Tall like said that as well.
Our DP
you can't
was,
move so much.
Our DP was extremely meticulous, and if you go out to the props table out there, we have some of the props from film. For you filmmakers, there's also our shot list. Our DP was so meticulous with his shot list. Every single shot in the film was detailed and written out, and he had maps and everything. And if we veered from it, he got a little cranky. I'll just say that. A little? Okay, a lot cranky.
Joe?
Yeah, so are you definitely doing sequels or?
And prequels.
Yes. It's the second and third one are already written. The idea is for the trilogy to tell a linear story of one house. And when you watch the trilogy, you can watch it in any order and it'll still tell the same story in the same sequence of the house, but you get very different perspectives on some of the things that happen, some of the before and after things of some of the characters that survived the house, and some of the stories on how some of the characters got into the house to begin with. So if we have our say, it's going to happen, but it's got to be somebody else's money.
Right. That's why you have to spread the word that you like this one, and that'll definitely help us a lot.
Tell your friends
Tell your
that it was
friends.
cool, please.
How long was the principal shooting?
14 days, plus one pickup day for the last scene.
Wow.
What we did was we did one day for the real estate story, the walk through the house.
There was no sleeping.
Then we did 3 days for the first story. We had a day off that wasn't really a day off. It was a changeover day where we completely redesigned the whole basement and the upstairs in the house, transitioned it to the Dosey story. Then we shot that one for 4 days. Then we took another day off that was just changing the set and the house design around, and then shot 3 days for the last story.
And then
Oh, here's a.
How did you, I noticed like each era had a style, like the one that took place in the 80s was kind of like the slasher comedy, and the one in 2005 was like the torture, redemption. How did you pick which eras to do?
We specifically set them in horror styles, so the time periods that they were in. So whatever time period that the story took place in is the stylings that we modeled it after.
Right, plus violence-wise, we kind of mapped it out so that Like the first story isn't as much violence, you don't see it, so okay, that's obviously older stuff. The 80s. The second story had more of the humor, so okay, that's obviously 80s. The third one is just balls out, you know, torture, killing everybody. So that's obviously the new style of horror. I mean, that was pretty much what we discussed. I mean, that's pretty much where we started with it. So.
When are you gonna tell the story of the house?
Well, the entire trilogy is the story of the house, and you'll find out more about how the house came to be, why certain people like the house and other people don't, and what is the root cause of that motivating factor for people that visit the house. So, it's just beginning.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
I think if you go to Buffalo, you'll see it. But
Yes, but don't disturb Grandpa.
you have to be in Buffalo.
Or Scotty.
Okay, right there.
What's the, I've seen the real estate lady on Cinemax quite a bit.
I've seen a lot of her on Skinamax.
I've seen more of her than you saw in this movie.
What's the story behind casting her? How did you guys find her, or how did, did she come to the audition?
I knew right away that we wanted a redhead, and I believe Felissa is the one that first suggested Monique. And as soon as I saw her headshot, there was something about her that just had sex appeal, yet evil, that the red, she just looks real good in red.
She did, yeah, she looked fantastic, and she nailed it too. I mean, there was no BSing with her. She knew exactly what the character needed, and even when we were too shy to say show more cleavage, she would just do it because she just knew that's what we wanted. You know, she was exactly. She couldn't keep your eyes off.
She becomes an integral part of the franchise and ultimately the Dosey story as well.
That's one thing I want to say that I don't think a lot of people have talked about is Holly Greene's performance.
The girl in the cage.
I look back on it, and Holly and I purposely did not have a social relationship on set where we really didn't talk to each other at all, even though we were all in very close quarters all the time. And we just, and I got that vibe that she was a really nice person and stuff, and we're both very social, but I just couldn't, and she couldn't, and so we, the first time I walked on a set, I stared. I remember walking right up to the cage and just grabbing the cage and looking at her, and I thought to myself, "Wow, this is a tough bitch." and I said, "Okay, now I've got something to work with," because she stared right back at me, and but I mean, her comedic timing. The scene with the food in her mouth is so.
She ate so much pasta.
Oh my God, we made her eat that plate of pasta how many times?
Many.
I'll give you that one.
Yeah, she never stopped.
And that was actually from our catering too.
Yeah, so it was leftover craft services that we forced down.
She had already eaten dinner.
She was a trooper, yeah, everyone, yeah, she was.
And her sister.
And her sister, yeah, her sister, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but what's her sister in the last
Aaron.
shot, right?
Aaron Greene's
the very last shot when the two are lying there in the cages.
Yeah, one of them's her sister.
The titty girl had to leave early, so we didn't get the last shot with her
But
in
you
there.
gotta tell them about the teddy thing.
Oh,
Come on, it's funny. It's a little funny.
We had to paint her nipples on because for whatever reason her nipples were flesh toned and they didn't read on screen.
They didn't pop on screen.
What was the original inspiration for the story?
The last story was actually the first story written, and that one was just after a bad day. I came home with this short in mind about just people pissing a guy off, and he just runs through the whole family because he's sick of them. And when I submitted it to Randy through Craigslist, he loved the idea but wanted to make it a feature. And the only reason I hadn't done anything with it sooner is because I couldn't figure out how to make it a feature without watering it down. So he suggested the idea of, well, what if the house had more stories to tell? And that's how we ultimately, I'm like, yeah, great idea. So I wrote the first story, and we had a big hole in the middle, and couldn't figure out for the longest time what to put there. We even had another writer on board at one point that had a middle story. And it was a good story, but it just didn't fit with the flow of the whole movie. So ultimately, I had to sit down and bang out another story. So with no ideas really left on how or why to kill people, I just started thinking about, what if I decided to snap and kill people? How would I go about it? And then retrospectively, one of the things I've kind of noticed watching the movie over and over again is some of my inner demons kind of seep through on these three stories. Like the first one is kind of childhood trauma and turmoil, your family drama. The second one is more my sick, dark, demented side of just screwing with people. And then the third one is just straight up rage and anger.
Lead singer.
Right now, we've got the 6 cities planned. Once that finishes up, depending on the reaction, which has been great, but not enough people are demanding it right now. It's been a slow go from the start. What our plan is keep renting out the theaters to show it to people.
Only shown it for 3 days.
Well, yeah, I'm not a patient person, if you can't tell. But from there, our plan is if we can build up the audience, we're going to keep going to different cities and renting out theaters. But more likely, one of the things that we're talking about doing to kind of scale it back and regroup, because not everybody likes to pay $15 for a movie they know nothing about, they haven't seen any advertising. And unfortunately, great places like this cost a bunch of money, and to fly 3 assholes to the screenings to talk to you guys, that costs a bunch of money too. So it raises ticket prices higher than we want. So one of the plans that we're trying to do to adapt to the market is we plan on building a large projection screen. Come on, Will. We plan on building a large projection screen and just going around the country in a car or a van, whatever it takes, and passing out flyers and having free screenings where we just, in a farm, inside of a barn, wherever we go, just having a free screening and letting people donate whatever they want based on how they felt about the film after the fact to help us keep going on to the next city.
So, you've just experienced the Elmira stop for the Return to the Perfect House tour, our grassroots tour across the country to generate awareness of the film and ourselves as a production company, Gratwick Films. Thanks for helping. I'm going to bring up some people now. Before that, though, I want to mention that the film and the tour are sponsored by Gem Design Jewelers of New York, Buffalo, New York.
Kris, what I want to know is, what sick and twisted stuff do you have going on in your head to come up with these stories? What is your inspiration? Where did it come from?
The first story that I wrote was actually the third story, the one that ends with the weed whacker. And I wrote that one after a long day at work when I was still working in the cubicle and wanted to take some people out, and that was the easiest way to do it. I wrote it was a short, it was just a straight slaughter fest, and I did nothing with it for almost a year. I really wanted to turn it into a feature-length film, but I didn't want to do it without watering it down. So I just hung on to it, and through my routine of stuff, I checked Craigslist every single day, and I eventually found an ad looking for shorts or feature horror films to submit. I sent it in and got a response from Randy Kent, and he liked it as much as I did, and felt the same way I did. He wanted to make it a feature. We couldn't figure out for the longest time how to turn it into a feature film without watering it down, so what Randy ultimately suggested is what if the house had more stories to tell. And from there we came up with the idea of, instead of changing characters and settings, we changed time periods in the house, and we would need 3 stories. So I quickly wrote the first story and had that one right away in my head and we had a big hole in the middle that we couldn't fill. We tried a couple different people's stories, things like that, and nothing worked out. And ultimately, after months of procrastination, I realized that I had to write another story. So I went with the only thing I had left in my mind, that if I snapped and decided to start going after people, how would I do it? And the second story is kind of based on my demented ideas of how I would take people out. And we ended up with 3 stories.
To carry on with, you were talking about how the story developed. I'm curious as to Randy's take on how he helped to continue it.
It was just like that. I mean, we started kicking around ideas, and I think my one suggestion was more violence, more blood. And then as he started writing it, I said, okay, this is interesting, so maybe we can build up to the weed whacker scene, which is the big kill in the thing. So it's basically, if you watch the film again, please do. October 1st, worldwide video on demand. If you watch the film in progression, it really is kind of on a level of violence until it just explodes at the end. And that was kind of what we were going for. We just wanted people to leave like completely just, sick. I mean, that's really all it boils down to. It's like we wanted to grab people in and say, hey, this is this nice little story. Oh, you get this little storm story, It's just nice and happy off-screen violence, and then we just keep kicking it up a notch. And that was, I think, my biggest, if I remember, my biggest contribution to it was just more violence. More violent, more blood.
So he's really the sick, twisted one, not me.
That's
I just
right.
did what I was asked.
I just expanded on the violence. And actually, when we were doing post, we actually kept telling the post house we wanted more blood. They wouldn't give it to us. Is that right? Yeah. Anyway, that's a longer story. But, so yeah, that was my contribution.
What was the hardest day of shooting?
Let me tell you the hardest day of shooting. There were 2 days actually, but the hardest of any day of my entire career was the scene in the bathroom. It was probably 110 degrees. It was what, a 6x6, 4x4 box.
4x6 and a half, I think, is
Yeah.
called schematics.
4x6 room in the middle of June in Buffalo. It wasn't a set, it was an actual bathroom, and you're fitting, what, 30 people in that room.
On the second floor with the windows closed.
Yep. And it was the only bathroom in the house we could use. So it was, that day was a nightmare, and it took us 3 times as long to shoot that stuff as we had hoped.
What kept you guys inspired through the filming, especially on the most brutal of scenes?
It was fun. Every day I loved it. There wasn't really much I needed to keep motivating. But the only thing that was frustrating is everywhere I touched, I got sticky and blood all over my clothes, and that got old pretty quick. But other than that, it was an absolute riot.
Yeah. And it was so short. I mean, we shot this film in 14 days, so it flew by. So I think that's what kept us inspired. It was just, every day it was like we were closer to getting it done. And also, I think, and Kris has touched on this in different Q&As, is that once we started shooting the second story, which was the girl in the cage, we realized we had something special. We realized that, the performances were so good in that story that we realized we had something pretty special. So that also kept us going too. But yeah, I agree, the blood was the worst. It was horrible. It was sticky.
How about for Mike? What was your most brutal day of filming?
Well, I filmed for 3 days, so I don't really remember. It was all fun for me. It was just a great experience. It's just funny to see myself up on the screen.
Yeah,
because you just watch horror films your whole life and you wonder, like, how did they make it? So then it was just cool just to see myself trying to get scared or scaring people.
What was your favorite part about the whole thing?
About mine or about the movie?
Just the whole process and being involved in it.
I actually like just how we put the whole thing together. Like when I first came to the house, I read for you guys, and then it was, I got the part, and then when we went down, or when we actually shot it, that's when it hit me. I was like, wow, I'm actually in a movie. So,
this is your first movie?
Oh yeah, this is my first movie. It was just a good experience too.
How old are you?
17.
Mike Wagner was actually the last actor that we cast, and he really saved the day because the weakest spot we had was the son for that story. We just couldn't find anybody in the Western New York area that had what it took. And ironically enough, the dad in the first story is the one that's like, I know this friend of my son's, he's a great actor in high school stuff and things like that. You guys should talk to him. And the second he came over, look, attitude, everything, we knew we finally found our missing piece, and it was a great referral by Mr. Tim Dugan. So thank you again for appearing in our dreams.
Thank you.
Woo! Anybody, any live people?
How did you get started in an interest in acting, and how did you get hooked up? He just answered that about getting hooked up through the father actor, but how did you get interested in acting in the first place?
Well, I've done plays throughout, starting in 6th grade. I did Beauty and the Beast, and then I just did high school plays my whole life, and then...
Beast?
No, I was...
What else is there? He was a teacup.
I was a teacup, actually.
Give the man.
You just did Arsenic and Old Lace, didn't you?
Yes, actually, in the fall.
That's a great one.
Yep. But I always just wanted, my dream was to be an actor on the film. So then when I got a call from Tim Dugan, he was like, yeah, the director needs a part to fill in. So then I went down to No Tonawanda where we filmed it, and then I auditioned. I got the role, thankfully.
We knew you had the role the second you walked in.
Yeah. His eyes really are great.
It's the eyebrows.
Everyone always asks, is his eyebrows real? I swear to God. Everybody asks that. It's like, are his eyebrows real? I say, yep.
It's just more intense when I go like this. That's what.
How much blood did you have?
I don't know.
That's an
Amy
easy
might know.
question.
Amy, a makeup person.
What kind?
Might be able to,
We used about 4 different kinds of blood on set that we make ourselves, and we probably went through about 32 gallons of blood.
32 gallons? Yes.
Amy, what kind of blood was there?
We had, one of the bloods that we used was actually a soap blood that we used mostly in the basement to be able to clean the floors up well.
What were their proper names?
Oh, they had funny names for the blood.
Yeah, there's all sorts of names.
Butt
One
juice?
was called hobo blood.
Hobo blood?
Butt juice was on the plunger.
Scab blood is what we use the most. We use a ton of scab blood. It's very thick and crusty.
Coagulated.
Yeah.
It was sticky.
How did I get involved?
Microphone.
Well, let me tell you. I auditioned for Kris a year before we started The Perfect House on a TV pilot that he was putting together called Collectors, about his adventures and his days at the collections offices that he worked at for 10 years or so. And I got the lead role in that, playing him.
Just like him.
Yeah, he's a better looking version.
True. And we just stayed in contact after that. I went and watched the Collector's pilot after it was done, and the whole experience was great. I loved his work ethic, and I loved how he got stuff done. And that's the kind of person I wanted to be out in Hollywood, is somebody who just gets the job and builds their own career in Hollywood. So we stuck together after that, and he was putting this together, and I wanted in, and he said I could be in, and we've been working together ever since. Anybody else?
What was your favorite scene? Each one of you, what was your favorite scene?
My favorite scene is Jamie in the bathtub. So my dad's too. This is my dad's girlfriend.
That's a great question. That's the one that hasn't been asked yet. I think off the top of my head, my personal favorite scene, it's a little, I don't know, I'm proud of it. It's the moment when the guy in the cage is having the first face-to-face discussion with the serial killer, and I take my own little shot at Saw when he says the line, there's no egotistically corrupt moral motives here, just one man trying to thin out the herd. And probably the way those two clicked and the dialogue there, that was my favorite part, was watching those two interact and the way the dialogue played out.
My favorite scene was just the whole second scene with the girl. I don't know her name. Holly. Well, she was just funny and hilarious. And I wish I would have met her, but I didn't. But that was my favorite scene.
I think my favorite scene is probably when Felissa gets her Achilles cut, because Kris and I disagree on this, but the shot where he cuts her Achilles and she falls in the camera and screams, to me, gets me every single time I watch it. It's just so brutally creepy, and I just love that moment in the film, and that to me is the big capper for the entire film. And Kris, I don't think, never liked that fall after the Achilles was cut. Do you like it now, or are you sold on it?
I don't. At this point in time, I think I've seen it enough times that I don't really think there's any other option. I mean, so.
Yeah.
How did you find her? Did she just come in an audition, or did
Holly was actually a really interesting story how we found her. We were looking for a while. We had a girl originally that we shot a trailer for in Los Angeles, because we originally shot a spec trailer to raise the budget. And we had a girl that we really liked for it at that point in time. But once we started looking into the SAG, which is the Screen Actors Guild contracts and things for ultra low budget films, it really became like they were basically mobsters, and they wanted to own the film if we made it and pulled it off. So we kind of got driven away from doing it SAG, and we lost a couple actors that we really liked at that point in time, and The Girl in the Cage was one of them. So we started looking. We originally looked in Los Angeles, and then I went to Buffalo in April, several months before we shot in June, and we started looking for actors to head out there. And she just happened to submit to a Craigslist ad we posted, but she was all the way in British Columbia, I think it was, when she responded. So she like begged us to do a Skype audition. Or actually, first she sent in an audition, a taped audition, and I told our producer, Andrea Vahl, I'm like, she can send one in if she wants, but I mean, there's no way we're gonna take it, because who knows how many times she stopped the camera, rewound it, and did it until she got it perfect and sent that one in. And she sent it in, and she must have been in a hotel or something in British Columbia, and she like locked herself in the hotel closet and filmed it with a little camera down there, and she did awesome, and I was like, now I have to actually think about this, and I didn't want to. So we got her on the phone, and we actually had her do an audition on Skype, and a follow-up audition, and she was in the hotel, and she put her computer in that point into the closet, put herself back in the closet, and I think it was like, because she was on the West Coast, like 6 or something in the morning at this hotel room, and we asked her to scream as loud as she could in the closet and see how that went. And she pulled it off without anybody coming and looking for her, and she knocked it out of the park online, and we didn't have a choice at that point. Yeah, she every time I watch that story, my affection for her and the delivery of the lines and that grows by leaps and bounds. I always appreciated the job that she did, but it really starts to sink in and mean something more to me each time I see the reactions that people get out of her lines and things.
Yeah. Is the basement creepy in real life as it portrayed in the movie?
That basement terrified me forever. The house that we shot it in was my grandpa's house. We looked forever for a house to shoot in Los Angeles, and apparently basements aren't very popular. We found one house, well, it was actually like a historical building that was huge, and it had an okay basement, and it had the key ingredient, which was the storm doors. But they wanted something like $16,000 to $20,000 to shoot there for 2 weeks. And at that time, our budget was only slightly bigger than that, so we really couldn't afford to do it. And ultimately, I started running the numbers and everything and realized that the house I wrote the story with in mind was my grandparents' house that had terrorized me from when I was a kid on, even going down there to get their laundry for them. I had no desire to go down there, and that creepy storm door off to the side just always freaked me out. And so I was like, we can pay $3-4 grand, fly everybody back to Buffalo, have our friends and family jump on board, find people there that are looking for an opportunity that probably have just as much talent, but just don't have the opportunities that people in LA do. And we can save a bunch of money and find a lot more support for a cheaper cost, and it worked out perfectly. My grandpa was touch and go about it most of the time. And he had a blast telling all his relatives and old buddies, or whatever you want to call them, that Hollywood was in town and thought we were there to give tours while we were shooting. But ultimately it worked out great, and we had the house that I wrote the story for, and you can't ask for much more than that as a writer. He's got a brand new repainted stairway after dragging Felissa up the stairs and splattering blood all over the place.
I think the blood on the bricks is still there, right?
Yeah, the blood on the bricks is still there.
There's some blood splatters.
Yeah, some of the blood splatters on the wall are still there. It took him a while, but he got over it. Now it's just a great story for him to tell to all his buddies and that. But for a while, he spent most of the time trying to blame us for anything that had happened in the house over the past 20 years. Like, he suddenly realized marks on the siding from when Christmas lights were hung decades ago. And my mom and my uncle had to keep calming him down. No, that's been like that for 10 years now. They didn't do it. But he loves it now that it's over. But we'll be building a soundstage next time.
Speaking of friends and family, what was it like working with them so closely during the making of the film from Twitter?
It was a roller coaster. I mean, there were good days and bad days with everything. My family had really no idea what to expect. No matter how many times I told them, I'm like, listen, we're bringing a full production back here. We're going. This is like legit. This is serious stuff. And no matter how much I explained it to them, I tried to show them stuff, I tried to prepare them for it, they just had no idea what was coming. And when everybody finally showed up and arrived, the first couple days they were really overwhelmed. But after that, especially my uncle became our location manager. And without him and without my mom running interference with my grandpa, we would have never been able to make it. And so they had their doubts, but ultimately once people started really seeing how many great people we had on board and things like that, like everybody else, they bought in and just wanted to be a part of something special.
I was just wondering, at the end of the movie, you have the two guys talking about how the house feels evil. Is that implying that it's supernatural as the cause, or is it just...
Take this one. Yes and no. There's an evil in the house, we just don't know what it is yet. That's probably the best answer. Is that about right?
Yeah. There's a reason that certain people want to live in the house, and there's a reason certain people don't. There's something that ultimately gets explained that messed up people kind of have a sense that, I really like this place. And the house has a way of appealing to people that will carry on the tradition of the house. And ultimately there will be a reason why that is.
So after this initial leg of the tour, we're thinking about buying a projector of our own and a blow-up screen and going to people's yards and projecting on our blow-up screen or on the side of their barn, drive-in theaters, any place that we can go, as long as there's maybe 100 demands. We'll barbecue in your yard and play the movie and put out a donation hat, and we'll show up. And speaking of donations, I do have to say that we have a donation hat. It's a popcorn bucket, and we could use all the support you guys are able to give. This is to keep us going down the road and spreading the word about the Perfect House, to encourage people to be our friends and get excited about the VOD release, the worldwide release of the Perfect House on VOD, video on demand, on October 1st, which will be the end of the Return to the Perfect House tour.
How did you wind up deciding to come to Elmira?
We came to Elmira because it's the closest we could get to my hometown of Wellsboro, Pennsylvania. We designed the first leg of the tour to utilize the talent in the film. So we went to Colorado. Denver, Colorado was the first stop, where Jonathan Tiersten, or John Dosey, that's where he's from. And we went there where all his fan base is and started there. Well, no, we started in Hollywood. We started in Hollywood with Felissa Rose and John Philbin and Jamie Baker, Monique Parent. And so we started in Hollywood on the 13th, and then the next day flew to Denver, where Jonathan Tiersten is, and did Starfest there, which was a weekend comic book science fiction horror convention, and showed the movie there. And now we're here for all you guys. Thank you for coming. And next we're heading to Rutgers University in New Brunswick, New Jersey. We're heading there the day before Easter, because that's...
in Rutgers, tell them about the movie, please.
And then the day after Easter, we're going to be in Philadelphia, where Kris Raab is, and his people. That's how we put this together.
Now, after seeing production, has that enticed you at all, or are you still just sticking towards acting?
What do you mean?
Do you want to work behind the camera or in front of the camera?
After having seen some of the magic and all the work that goes into a
Oh
movie
yeah,
feature.
I wouldn't want to just keep it at acting. I would want to just expand. So, because I would want to work anywhere with the film, just to be behind the camera, just to hold the mic up, just so I can just see, get more experience.
What was the most fascinating part of seeing production go on around you? What was the most educating enlightenment to how a movie would go?
What is that word? I didn't hear it before I got on the set. Is when you have to keep everything the same, so the
continuity.
Yeah, the continuity. Like because when you cut the scenes, and then like you just have to make it so that it just looks the same, like it's just like real life. And that's probably the hardest part, just to keep, like, in the basement, everything gets shuffled around when we were shooting it, so, like, and then, but taking pictures was, like, easier, just so.
No, I wasn't done. I mean, yeah, it was tough keeping up continuity.
Anybody else? Thank you guys again all for coming out. Everybody, whether you guys liked the movie or didn't like the movie, we've got a little confessional booth set up over there. If you could please just stop by and say a 2-3 second thing about what you thought about the movie. Even if you thought it was the worst thing in the world, tell us. People want to hear that too. So anything you feel, if you want to talk about your day for 10 seconds or so, go ahead. But
Be our
please,
fan of the day on our website.
Light's dead, night's over. Please check out the confessional.
How long was the process from start to finish getting all of this done?
I think from the time me and Randy met each other till now, or till the movie was finished, I think it was just a little under 2 years.
2 years, yeah. And wow, huh? Why horror?
Wanted to do a horror. I personally, I'd done 3 other films, dramas, comedies, whatever. I've always loved horror films. I've always wanted to do a horror film, and that was kind of how that started. Just something I wanted to do.
For me as a writer, and I think some of the pent-up frustration and anger that I have inside of me, the writing a horror movie was a great outlet, and shooting it became an even better outlet until we got covered in blood and sticky syrup every day. But
Sounds like a page out of Sam Raimi's book, actually, doesn't it? What about you, Will? What do you think the appeal to horror is?
Everybody loves horror. Well, not everybody, but some people love it.
They tried.
They did try. It's a perennial favorite. Horror movies are a perennial favorite. Everybody still loves Texas Chainsaw Massacre. When did that come out? 73?
Yeah.
People still love that. People still love The Exorcist that came out in 73. People love horror. People love it.
Now, go ahead.
How's your movie been received everywhere else you've been on tour? Where have you been before here?
We started in LA, it's received very well. Then we went to the Denver Starfest. Then we went to the Cinema Grill in Aurora. And last night, or the night before, we went to Elmira. And everyone is loving the film. I mean, we are been blown away by the response that we're getting.
Elmira was unbelievable. It was our best show yet, and great support there.
You have a lot of drunken stories to tell afterwards, or
Not really. We're just always so tired after the show to do anything.
We wish there were some drunken
I
stories.
think last night was the first chance that we got out to actually drink and walk around and mingle with people, and apparently they loved us.
But yeah, we actually had some, at the Cinema Grill in Aurora, after the Starfest, we actually had some repeat people, like people who who loved it so much they brought their friends to see it because they wanted to see it a second time also. So the response has been pretty amazing.
Now, one of the cool things with this tour too is you got a box out in the hallway.
Yes.
You call it your confessional, which I recommend everybody go out and check out, especially if you guys show out to anyone else's town. By all means, take full advantage of it. Can you tell us a little bit about the confessional?
The confessional is just designed to take advantage of what you guys think about the movie and hope other people can either use the reference or take the insight and make an educated decision on whether they want to see the film themselves or whether they don't want to see the film. I mean, if you like it, you don't like it, it helps somebody. They get to see a little insight, and if you don't like it, maybe the reason you don't like it is a reason somebody else will like it. So it doesn't hurt to say that anything negative or positive, and we're not afraid to hide anything. We've shared all the good stuff that's happened on the tour so far. I mean, obviously, we're so appreciative that you guys did show up, but we're personally disappointed with the turnout here on a college campus we spent all night catering to the students at. So, I mean, we're going to share this too. We're going to own it, and we're going to take it as a learning experience, and we're going to evolve the tour. I mean, we already had an emergency meeting outside and came up with a different strategy that I think we're going to employ right away with Philadelphia. But every little step of the way helps, and the confessional is one of those things that separates us from everybody else, and we're hoping that you take part in it and do a little bit to help the cause.
And what about when you were writing? There's obviously other recurring themes besides just the house, like the radio shows up multiple times, and the makeup kit shows up multiple times. What latched on in your mind to those things to put them through?
There's a lot of different things, and a lot of them have too much to do with the sequel. So I'm kind of hedging my answer a tiny bit. But mostly we wanted something like things that tied everything together. Stuff that if you went back and watched it and you paid attention to it, you'd see little different things. And a lot of the stuff, like through the dialogue of the real estate story, the beginning part when they're walking through, like they talk about everything from owner to owner has been left in the house. So there's a collection of these items that have been around the house, and the longer the time period goes on and the more recent somebody's in the house, there's more items collected over the time that were used for things that they probably shouldn't have been used for. And we just thought it'd be interesting and something for people to pick up on and catch back when they watch it back through. If they, oh wait a minute, that's from the first people that owned the house, or that TV that's on the kitchen counter was the TV that guy had to sit there and watch all the brutal murders and stuff on, and it just gives a little extra added symbolism than just a different TV on the counter or a different item.
There's probably more that you didn't miss. You have to say it again, say it many times, everyone.
I mean, it was good. Like, there was actually really good actors and actresses, and it made it look like it was like really happening. And I was just really, I couldn't even look at that good.
Good, that's the reaction. But I think that, to go back to your other question, Ken, that's the reaction that we're getting. People are just stunned. They're not expecting it, and that's great. That's great that we surprised them, you know.
I do want to ask you, takeaways as guys involved with the film, what do you take away as filmmakers making this?
I take away a lot. I take away knowledge on well, we're definitely going to be doing more horror movies, but that's not specifically the genre that I want to focus in. I take away that I'm either going to hire a crime scene investigator to be on set to try and remember where all the blood and everything's supposed to go and stuff like that, or I'm going to shoot it in chronological order. I think one of the other things I took away is no matter what you prepare for, no matter how many different things we thought we were ready for, there's always going to be more. And the experience for me was just, I can't wait to do another one because of everything we learned and like just realized along the way that was just, wow, that could have been done a lot easier.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I guess, I think one thing we took away, I know Chris will agree with me, is if you have a small room like that bathroom, build a set.
Yeah.
Make it as easy as possible.
And we have a very special guest this evening because we're in his neck of the woods, Mr. Chris Raab. Come on up, Chris. Yeah, so my friend Gabe actually had to exit halfway through the film because he was sweating and about to lose his lunch.
The first screening we did, one of my buddy's girlfriends actually threw up in her beer, and she's not a drinker.
Yeah, I was pretty disturbed by all that. This is actually the first time I've seen the film, and I didn't know what to expect, and I usually don't get grossed out by a lot of things. I think I've seen a lot of nasty things in my day, and that was pretty twisted, sir. but yeah,
I have a recommendation from you.
Yeah, I'm very pleased, man. That's really good.
Thank you.
What other schools went through your mind other than weed whacker?
Really, that was the first one that popped in my head. I think I kind of developed that story around, like I came home and I was just like, you know what, I really want to fuck somebody up with a weed whacker. And so I kind of wrote a story that climaxed up to that. The weed whacker was pretty much the first thing I had in mind for this whole thing.
So the madness started there.
I went backwards.
Yeah. Well, I just done a drama called Life of Lemon. It's actually at festivals right now. And I was looking for something to do, and I always loved horror films. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is like one of my favorite films of all time, and Dawn of the Dead, like all the original 80s stuff. And I wanted to do a horror film. I wanted to do a cheap, low-budget, schlocky horror film, because I love them. So I put an ad on Craigslist. I got a lot of submissions, a lot of scripts, and then Dinner Guest, which what the third story is actually called, came into my lap, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I was like, we got to do this film, but how do we do it into a feature? And then that's kind of how that whole thing came about. I did read a lot of stuff, and that was probably the best one that I read.
I don't think I ever asked you how much competition I had.
We had there was a ton of competition. Yeah, awesome. There was a lot. I probably got about 30 scripts, features, shorts, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So yeah, originally we were gonna do this as like a $5,000 low-budget horror film, and then it just like, we got Felissa on board, and it just kind of, it grew and grew and grew like a snowball going down a hill. And now, I mean, we're here. This is the last show of our little mini tour of the film. It's been amazing, so.
We got a question from the Twitter.
Oh, nice.
For Kris.
Raab.
Okay.
What was it like working with two directors, and how long did it take to shoot your scene from Gratwick Films?
Well, actually, it was great working with these two. I just met them through my friend Felissa Rose, who got me involved with the project. But as soon as I met them, just kind of like meshed right away. It was just easy to work with, fun times, and it just felt like
even though the first day was the worst freaking day of the entire shoot.
Yeah. As soon as we got there, it was nice weather, everything was great. They got everything set up, and then it rained right as soon as we were about to start shooting. So
rain, 40-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, it was definitely like almost like a hurricane. So they had to shut down the set and close everything up, and then
ultimately we had to bring it all the way back to Buffalo in October, and we completely reshot the ending. The last little segment with Kris is actually a completely different ending than the one we originally had. Because the weather was so bad, the audio got so messed up, we had a secret screening in October for friends and family that had helped make the movie come true in Buffalo. And after it was over, to a man, every single person said it was amazing, but the ending just sucked. And we're like, oh shit, we gotta do something. So we got Kris on the phone and we're like, dude, can you get your ass back up to Buffalo quick? We need to redo the ending. And luckily, he obliged and came up. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that original ending will be on the DVD. It'll be one of the extras, so that'll be the deleted scene.
You guys get to see how the actress was.
Yes, you'll get to see how the actual ending of the film originally was until we opened it up.
yeah, and like I said, I hadn't had a chance to see it all, so I think it all came together really well, and I had a blast doing it, and just and even going back up there is like. It was totally worth it, and excited to work with you guys again.
Oh, I can't wait. I've got such a great character in mind for this guy, for the next one. It's going to be awesome.
There's more to come.
As soon as I saw his personality and saw his charm on camera, I knew right away that we had to make sure we revolved the next one around a character based off of him. And I'm really excited to do it.
It's that smile.
As soon as you meet me, you think psychopath. That's a good.
Everyone has a stereotype.
Okay, I know you said that this was, you got this idea because your grandfather's basement was creepy. Was this your grandfather's basement that you shot in? And if not, did anything, or even if it was, did anything really creepy happen that creeped you out while you were filming?
I've always been terrified of basements. My parents were nice enough to traumatize me when I was a kid. We had an unfinished basement with a laundry room down in the back corner, and my parents knew I didn't like basements and didn't like the dark and that, so when I go down there, they thought it was hysterical to turn all the lights off while I was down in the basement and see how fast I could fly up the stairs in a terror. And between that basement and my grandparents' basement, they just messed me up, and I always thought of creepy shit down there. And when I wrote the story, I wrote it with my grandpa's basement in mind, because it was just a big basement, it had the storm doors, and I didn't like going down there. So ultimately, we tried to find a basement in Los Angeles and shoot out there, and try to find a basement in LA if you ever want a challenge. And we couldn't do it. We found one that was kind of, sort of, but not quite what we were looking for, and they ultimately wanted about 15 grand for 2 weeks of shooting there and a whole bunch of restrictions. So the idea just came about, what the hell? I mean, for 2-3 grand, I could buy plane tickets and fly everybody back to Buffalo. I'd have more support from my friends and family, and I'd actually have the house that we built, that I wrote the script for. And that's ultimately what we did.
All right, this one's for Kris. Can you talk about your transition into film?
Me?
Yeah, that's you.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it's certainly a lot different than the Jackass days. So I'm just kind of giving it my best, and I'm not sure how well I really kind of transitioned into it, but I'm, I think eager to pursue some of the acting stuff, and lucky enough that they gave me an opportunity.
We're happy to oblige.
To try it out and have fun, and I just figure it's just kind of all about whether you're having fun, and if you are, then I think that shows on screen and you know, and everything you do.
This got to be a little bit easier seeing how it's all fake, right?
Right. Well, the funny part was when we were shooting that last part where I was throwing Alan down into the basement part. I'm used to the one have to like jump off the roof or do some sort of stunt and hurt myself, and here we're taking, you know, an older gentleman and throwing him down the stairs. I'm like, this is great. I love this side of things, you know, like. And so they set up a little mattress down there, and I remember right before we were gonna throw him down, someone went down there and they were like, and you pull out like some big metal thing, like, oh, we probably shouldn't have this down there, you know. It was like they totally could have gotten impaled while we were shooting the thing.
After 5 or 6 test jumps into the stairwell full of foam and mattresses and that, my last test down, I looked to my side and there's a little piece of metal rod sticking out next to my head that I just missed. What the hell? I started pulling it. The thing ended up being about 10 feet long and sticking right up through the mats and everything. And
yeah, it's pretty sketchy.
That could have been good.
General question, sort of. Do you guys, prior to all this, were you into the supernatural at all? Did that have anything to do with it growing up, or even now as it's continued? Do you still have any, I guess, anything that you do besides just the filming and being interested in that goes any further, or is it just more towards the film?
Well, I'm heavily, if you see, I have a tattoo, an alien tattoo. I'm big into aliens and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I guess so. I guess that was kind of my fascination ever since I was a kid. I loved horror films and I loved scary stuff. I read the Necronomicon. I read all that stuff. I had a Ouija board. You name it. I ran the gamut. I would go with my friends to a cemetery and we'd do witch spells on Halloween. I mean, I've just always been attracted to the dark side, I guess you would say.
The occult.
The occult.
I'd say I'm the complete opposite. I'm a firm believer in don't ask, don't tell. If I don't know it's there and I don't think about it, it doesn't exist, and I don't want a confirmation one way or the other.
I do want confirmation that aliens exist. Before I die, I want to know.
But as far as the story goes, in that, I think one of the things we intentionally set out to do was try and not have it be another haunted house, another supernatural movie. We just wanted a whole lot of demented people and kind of have the motivation behind them unknown for right now. But staying away from ghosts and stuff like that is my prime goal in life.
Yeah, because it could have very easily went that way, I think.
We're even with what we have here, we're still fighting you made another Amityville horror. Like, you haven't even seen it, so good assumption.
Who did all the special effects, especially when the guy got his eyelids cut off? Because that was really good.
That was a combination. We had a special effects team up in Buffalo.
Anomaly Effects.
Anomaly Effects. For a second, I couldn't think of the names. It's Andrew and Eric. They did a lot of the practical. We did most of the effects practical, but then like the eyeballs themselves, we went in and had to do those CG. So a lot of those things are CG.
This film probably would have been done, well, it was supposed to be done by the end of October of last year, but the last 3-4 months we've been going round and round with the CGI place to make sure the eyes were as best as they could be and looked as real as possible.
So the eyes are fake. I mean, CG.
They're real eyes, but they're somebody else's eyes put in there. So.
I was kind of interested in the role that the real estate agent plays throughout the film, and not in that way. I'm wondering if you're going to reprise that role, or if you can tell us that, because she seems to be perfect for the physical embodiment of pure evil.
Well, that's why we picked her. She is a very integral part of the house, the story, and everything that's happening, both with the Dosey spin-off story and the rest of the franchise. She becomes an integral part of finding out the answers.
Right. I think, like I said, a lot of questions will be answered. There's a whole spider web of conclusions throughout the trilogy.
That little girl that was in the cage, alive, who walked away. Is that the real estate agent?
No, she's not the real estate agent. I almost gave away a real big.
Say no more, that's it.
No, she's not the real estate agent, but she does play an integral part again in the future.
Yes.
One of the things we were trying to leave you with is some of these people that escaped from this basement. Like, she's a perfect example. Like, the Dosey character is gone, but now that you got this girl out running around out in society, you might be worse off with her on the loose than you were with that guy in the first place.
Right. The same with the girl in the beginning, the first story, yeah. Are you better off?
And
How did your character hurt himself in the basement? How did you start bleeding?
go right ahead.
I am so glad you asked that question because the 6 cities that have seen this, nobody's asked that question, and that's probably the biggest oops that we had in the movie. It was supposed to transition better into the third story, and it didn't read as well as what we were going for. Ultimately, there are still the things that we wanted out of it. If you notice in the beginning when he's scratching the chair, there's a little bit of blood or something there he's scratching. It's the same thing, and it starts bleeding. And later on, when Felicia's climbing up the chair to try and get to her kid, and that you'll see her hand swipe the chair, and the blood gets left in that spot, and that's where that blood stain came from. And that was one thing that was kind of not supernatural, but just kind of unexplained. That kind of that blood on there just kind of started bleeding on its own, and it was everything we did. That was the toughest thing to get to.
We can never get that. I mean, we shot the film in 14 days, so a lot of things were not how we would like for them to have been, I guess is the best answer.
It seemed like we just wanted a little bit of blood dripping from his finger, just a little bit, but the little bit didn't read on camera, so we had to keep trying a little bit more, and then a little bit more was a little too much. And
yeah, it was just, that was probably the biggest blunder of the entire thing.
Out of all the things we pulled off, that was the one thing that...
But you're the only one. You're the only one who
Get out.
You're the only one, which is good, I guess. I guess it's good.
This is for Raab. So I'm concerned that you're moving into my basement at all.
Yes, he's very, very concerned.
Aw. We got such a good character for you.
Yeah, the sequel's all right. I'm excited to get to play around with some of the blood and get in the mix.
No, you're not.
Because
The blood was horrible.
Yeah.
Sticky. It was miserable.
I'll say this as a little hint to his character. Your big smiling grin was a major motivation factor on where I chose to go with your character. So how's it like coming back to your hometown with a finished, completed movie and being here to premiere?
It's rewarding. It's very rewarding, and I can't thank you enough for being here tonight to watch the film. It really means a lot to me, and I know how I went to school with a lot of you guys, and you heard me talking about going out to Hollywood, and I'm just proud to come back here and show you something that I've done, and it's going to go big on Facebook.
Budget were you working with for this film, and how long was the process from, I guess, you guys finding each other, or if you knew each other ahead of time, and to the end of the whole film being put together?
The budget for when we were up through shooting was about $40,000. And when we wanted to go and get all the post-production stuff, we definitely spent a lot more than that, about double that amount, just for getting, because we turned very particular. We saw what we had with the rough footage, and it was a lot better than most people get, but we knew if we were that close, the little tiny tweaks that cost a lot are the ones that we wanted.
I'm gonna let Will handle that one because you kind of encompassed the group perfectly.
So, Kris started off with his first film in 2008.
7, 8, yeah.
His first film, and that's where him and Andrea met. Andrea acted in that. And then his next project was a TV pilot, in which I got cast in.
These were all done with no money, by the way, so don't go looking for them.
They're good, though. and that's how I met. And then we became, all three of us were friends at that point. And then The Perfect House got made, and that's when Hans came aboard with co-director Randy Kent.
Mm-hmm.
And
mainly we found everybody through Craigslist.
Craigslist.
We looked for people that were friends first, people that were hungry for an opportunity and were more passionate than they were skilled or talented, and they just wanted to learn and be part of an opportunity like we did. So we didn't want to find anybody that was way above us and was sitting, oh my God, these guys don't have a clue what they're doing. We wanted to all learn together and make something special together. And we did an unbelievable job of screening through Craigslist and just found one good person after another.
How hard was it to get the blood off the camera?
Cameraman was very particular about his camera,
Yes.
so it didn't get much blood on it.
Yeah.
Well, no, because there was that one scene where there was that big blood splatter. You could see it hit the lens.
It actually doesn't hit the lens. What we had was the camera was completely encased in a plastic sheet and a wrap, and we shot it through a sheet of glass.
Okay.
So it hit the glass and landed.
So when you shot that bathroom scene,
Oh,
right? I mean, so
God,
small.
bathroom scene.
Was it Zoom? Was he outside the room?
No, he was inside the room.
Most of the time he
very
was
much
perched
on
up
the
on,
sink.
yeah, on the countertop.
We spent, because then when the guy killing her stepped in, you know, there's even less room.
Oh, yeah. We spent 12 hours in that bathroom.
At
With-
90-degree weather.
Yeah, with another 10 or 15 people all stashed up on the second floor there in the side rooms that had to do all their stuff. And we had to keep the windows closed because it was the middle of summer and it sounds everything out there. So it got up to probably about 115, 120 up there, and that was by far the worst day on set. I think every single person had a flare up of the temper that day.
I did, and I stayed for sure.
Yeah. This day is a little bit special than more of the other screenings. At midnight tonight, the film will be released on Facebook to the entire world. So if you have Facebook, you can watch the movie. Once we're done with the Q&A here, we're going to go downstairs and kind of just party and celebrate till midnight. At midnight, we're going to ask if you guys all want to raise a toast to us and celebrate the accomplishment. This is the first film ever to release on Facebook, premiere on Facebook. So we are more than happy to share that with you guys tonight. And thank you for being a part of it.
What made you decide to market it this way?
It was a little bit of kind of make it up as you go along, and a little bit of the man forcing our hand. We were open to every option possible, and we kind of just wanted to keep the film within our control as long as possible so we could take advantage of all the opportunities. And some of the opportunities that came our way were from two very large distribution companies, but they didn't want us or the film to come with it. They just wanted the film. And they made all sorts of promises about what could happen in the future and things like that, but they didn't want to help take care of our friends and family that put all their money up to fund the film. And we were at least looking to pay back the people that got involved before anything else happened. They didn't want to do that. They wanted to promise maybe down the road someday they'll get something back. So we wanted to look for other avenues and work with them. Like, okay, we'll do the DVD distribution that way, but we want to do it this way. And then when it quickly became obvious that we were going to have the opportunity to work with Facebook and do this first release thing ever, we went back to the companies that wanted the DVD rights and stuff, and we're like, listen, we'll give you the DVD rights, but we'd like to keep the online rights and for ourselves and for the investors so we can generate an immediate stream for them. They wanted no part of that. They didn't like it. They didn't want anything to do with it. So they wouldn't work with us, and we were willing to share and all this and that, and they forced us down our own road. So now we've gone and done it. We've gone across the country. We've promoted ourselves. We've got the Facebook deal ourselves. And now the Facebook success will dictate the terms for the DVD deals and the things that follow. If the fans like it and everybody loves it, well, then we won, and now they got to come back to the bargaining table and pick our price instead of just putting us over the barrel.
Good. I like that.
And if it works, it'll open up a lot of opportunities and doors for a lot of other independent filmmakers to at least have a chip in their pocket when they come to negotiate.
Any plans for any future films or even a sequel?
Ideally, we got the next 10 to 20 years already mapped out, and I'm hoping a lot of it goes through Facebook. The second, third, and a spin-off story are already written and ready to go. Our plan is, if the success and all that happens, to shoot them subsequently all in a row on the same set, because they all take place in the house and stuff like that. And we'd like to shoot it as a package to kind of conserve on costs and do it responsibly, and then release it ourselves, but just on a little bigger scale.
Great. I was really impressed with the music. And who was the composer? Where is he from?
I love the score.
Yeah.
Frederick Wiedmann, he's German, but he's been in LA and he's working under, I forget the name of the composer that he's like an understudy to.
He was an understudy on the guy who did Legion, that came out with, I can't remember.
I can't think of the guy's name either.
Yeah, but it was one of the big budget horror movies that came out last year, I believe it was. He's great. He's another one like the rest of us that we stumbled across and found on Facebook. And he like us, just wanted to be a part of something and make something special, and really is another one of the people that we're going to hold on to for everything we do. And they become more friends than partners and anything else, and we've all just kind of been in this together and rooting for each other. And Frederick's just a long list of success stories on Craigslist.
Between the graphics and the sound and everything, man, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, really, I mean, it's a top-notch production, top to bottom, and I was wondering, I mean, because the time and care that was taken, or the budget you had, what do you attribute it to?
I mean, pretty much from start to finish, our goal was to put all of our resources and whatever we could put together into production value.
Right.
Because if it's an independent film, a lot of what suffers is the production value. So we developed our story, our idea, and our entire plan around put it all into production value and then let the rest take care of itself. And the story was developed to take place in one location, so we didn't have to move from location to location and all the money and extra expenses that come with that. Everything's right here. We set up and we're here for 2 weeks, and it can serve that money that could go into better equipment and better cameras, and then we just got the best people that wanted an opportunity. The biggest thing we saved on was labor, because most of us did this for free. Most of us took less than we would normally do because everybody wanted to be a part of one opportunity to make something on our own. A lot of the people that we had doing grip and camera and things like that, they're not normally head of departments for films and things like that. They're learning like we were. We all took it together, and it's just everyone's seizing the opportunity.
Were you expecting that quality?
No, I'm telling you, really, I wasn't.
That's one of the common stories that we get.
Our most common compliment is, "Oh my God, it was a real movie."
It sounds like you were very directed in your, your priorities and whatnot. That production value is key. I've got a friend who's a filmmaker, and I was at one of his premieres, and the sound was terrible, and the lighting was changing.
We had a good sound,
and stuff like that. It's just but the sound can be a nightmare.
The biggest inspiration for this film and the quality and all of that, I'd have to say, is Paranormal Activity. Because I refused to watch it forever and ever, and then I finally watched it, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. This is what made $100 million. And all it was they sold the audience back to themselves. The original trailer, 45 seconds of it's the audience. It's not the movie. It was just a brilliant marketing campaign. Half the movie, the camera's sitting on the counter, and they're talking off screen and all that. It was horrible, and all I kept thinking about is, imagine if an independent film had production value and a better story, what could possibly happen, and especially if the internet got a hold of it. Sooner or later, a movie's going to take off the same way a YouTube video of a baby falling down gets 2 million hits overnight.
Kind of a random question about the movie, but the 1986 scene right before he goes to cut the eyelids out, the little plastic dinosaur. Like, any significance of that? Or?
Yeah, really, what's that?
Like, you caught that? Or just
I took it as a joke for the guy that was crazed.
Yeah, there's just a lot of little things like that we just thought would be visually cool and interesting that kind of came about. That was one of them. Like, way back before we ever really got into Buffalo and all that stuff, well, the person that was going to do the set design, she's like, do you want any like miniature dinosaurs or anything? What do I miniature dinosaurs for? And then after she said it, I'm like, you know what? Like, I could probably use that right there to be cool. And then the smiley face light, that came up the night before. We were rehashing some of the stuff that went on the day before in my mom's garage. And over in a box there was the smiley face light. And as soon as I saw it, I'm like, I know the perfect spot for this guy. And that just came about that night.
I thought that was great. I thought it was ironic that you have a smiley face at the worst time of these people's tortured life. Yeah, it was cool.
The street lights, that came about because we were cleaning out the basement to get ready to shoot down there, and there was a big street light just sitting there. Or we could put that somewhere.
Did you ever get your grandfather's house put back to normal?
That's my mom and my uncle.
Grandpa will say there are things that are still left, whatever, but as the family attests, there were things that were there way before we were. But he made sure we did not leave the house until everybody, pretty much all the cast and crew left in town, picked up at least a broom or helped, sweep up everything and repaint the basement and the stairs.
There's still a few spots down there that we can show people.
Uncle Dave told us to leave a couple, so once Grandpa can't see.
We gotta go autograph those.
I wanted to ask you, who made the cages and what were the cages designed for?
They were designed specifically for that story, and Dave made them. He did an amazing job on them.
Yeah, they really
Amazing.
He also made the furnace too. Yep, the furnace.
The
is
one
all
that's the
scratched
first story
out.
where she throws the body parts in?
Nice.
Oh, yes. So if anyone needs any ironwork, Dan is your man. He's
Dan's gonna be
definitely the
doing
one you need.
some TPH mobile ironwork tomorrow. Because I ran over North Tunnel on the street curb.
That was
yesterday.
Niagara Falls curb.
Niagara Falls
Good
curb.
works, yeah.
There's a man eater.
I was actually wondering, with that first story, at the end, you went from the black and white to the color as she was going out. Was that supposed to represent like just her escaping back into like a normal life?
It was more just a symbolism of a new day, a new beginnings, kind of going out into the bright lights, and more of just a creative decision, and we thought it looked cool to start the next day in color. That's the reason that the flashbacks are in color too, because usually a lot of times you'll see, like if a movie's in color, when they do flashbacks, the flashbacks will be in black and white. So we're doing most of that story in black and white, so we thought it'd be cool if we tossed the flashbacks in color. Trying different things.
That was pretty cool though.
It was great. I got another question. People say, where are you going to see yourself in 5 years, right? What do you, just the opposite. 10 years ago, where we are today? What do you think 10 years ago that you are here today?
10 years ago, I was rotting away in the collection agencies and pretty much gave up. Just got sucked into a life that was too easy and made good money at really not trying hard. And now I look back on so many different things, and they just made it all come together, and they're all different talents and skills that have all accumulated and drawn from this. Like me and Will have this talk all the time. There's so many things that we look back on now that either just sucked or were shitty or just didn't go right, and it just brought this. We look now that if we didn't have those skills or
we wouldn't survive the
experiences,
tour.
yeah, I would have quit a long time ago if I had any idea how.
Where were you 10 years ago?
I was in a factory or working for the Amish, putting up steel buildings or something.
He was the one guy who was allowed to run the stuff with the Amish.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a driver's license.
You got to touch
You got to use the phone. It's always handy.
You got this Will guy to turn the light switches on. Andrea, if you're going to ask everybody else.
I was in college for theater and film 10 years ago, so this was actually my plan. It was supposed to be more acting, but I got a little bit of the acting, a whole lot more of the responsibility bossy side, which, you know, slowly now that the film is released, I can stop being a big boss and actually get to enjoy the work instead and not have to worry. Yes, as Kris calls the rule sheriff. Because sometimes the rules are important. Everyone needs to remember that. Yeah, so we at least have one of us who knew this was something they were going to do, and the other two came into it a little bit sooner.
I always wanted to tell stories. I just didn't know I needed to do it all myself to get there. As in, like, go make it and go and that.
Wasn't that what collections is all about? It's just reeling the line of BS to get somebody to pay.
That's where I learned to get money from. Yeah, collections was an experience, and I've got so many stories that if somebody says I draw from too much on some of the writing in that, but I've got a whole series about my years in the collection agency and the Buffalo collection industry that I'd love to get going.
I just wanted to say that, like, it wasn't actually a question, but I just love the attention to detail, because, like, in the beginning, when they go into the dining room and he notices the stain on the chair, like, the first time through watching it, like, I didn't really, like, understand that part, but then watching it this time with the mother checking her, and, like, it really is a great attention to detail that, like, that's where the stain came from.
Yeah, there's not a lot of people that catch that one.
Yeah, like, the first time through I didn't, but it's just crazy, like, how in-depth you were with every little thing, you know?
Like we tried to put a lot of little nuggets in there that made it fun to watch it more times, and also things that would tie into the rest of the storyline and where we're going, that when you'll come back and you'll see, like, a lot of the props from each one stay in the house and they're used differently in different places.
Like the white bag, right?
The white bag becomes very integral. The radio, I believe, is on the counter in the third story. The radio is used in the first story for the storm. Then it's used when he's got it on the killing table, and then it's on the kitchen table or the kitchen counter in the third story. But there's a lot of little things we tried to sneak in there for that stuff.
What was the first ending?
The first ending took place in the front yard, and the voice of the actor was a little higher pitched than we were expecting. And it was also shot like during 30-mile-an-hour winds and rains on our first day of shooting. So a lot of the audio got mixed up and lost, and it just was terrible. So we went back because it's supposed to take place a couple months later. So when we actually went back for October to screen it, it was a couple months later after we had shot the movie. And once we saw the ending and how bad it was on camera and everything else, we took a bunch of questionnaires, and almost everyone, loved the ending sucked. Loved the ending sucked. We're like, oh, we got to do something about this. So we rushed out the next day, got Raab to come all the way back to Buffalo, and we reshot the ending, which ended up being a couple months later in the fall. So now it even looks better and more accurate. Yes, and that's where we found Alan.
Right, here's Tyler. Tyler. First time acting job, but he's actually a really good mechanic. He helped me fix the TPH mobile yesterday. Thanks, Tyler. And his mom Jess cooked for us.
And his younger brother is still alive.
We've got Melissa Keller, who did everything and anything she possibly could. Holly Greene came all the way from Canada. Alan, we just mentioned Alan. Stand up, Alan. Alex Marcosis, the survivor of the storm story. Uncle Dave took care of us. Made sure we didn't stepmom back there who made sure we ate every day. In between the two, water boy. He didn't really do much.
Hey, he did a lot of work a few years back to make sure Michael got here for us.
That's right. He's the son, or the father.
The real father of the boy who played Alex's brother in the first story.
Oh, Michael Wagner.
Then there's Aaron, who's behind the camera, everybody.
Casey Keller, who made sure Melissa got to set every day. Dan Frankowski made the cages.
Two special people that have to be pointed out. Anthony Ferrara and James Zappi have been the two most loyal supporters and backers of every single thing we've done, and I can't thank you guys enough.
There are people's microphones.
Anthony!
Let's talk about.
I know we want to mention all the investors too.
Oh,
all the investors too, make you all stand up.
Did the light feed go down?
Yeah, it's been reconnecting for 5 minutes now.
All right. Well, Anthony or Randy, Hans, everybody back home, you'll see this eventually. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of everything we've done from the very beginning, and it's just the beginning of the next step now.
Thanks, everybody, for supporting us.
Thank you.